Bianca, don't you just want to give the audience a brief overview of what you reported on, and then we take it from there? And
Sure.
this was already in 2016, long time ago.
Yeah. Liesl, thank you so much for having me. It's such a pleasure to see you and have this chat with you. Yes, it was a long time ago. It was in 2016. I got very concerned about the way the Trillion was operating, the way the Trillion was expecting me to sign for certain accounts and certain invoices and things like that that I knew nothing about. I didn't like the way that they were behaving. I wasn't familiar with it based on my previous experience. And I didn't know at the time when I left Trillion that Trillion was actually being bad. I just know that I didn't want to be there. But it was with the press release and with things that were coming out on state capture in the public domain that actually made me realize that Trillion was this kingpin. And even still then at the time, I hadn't planned on doing or saying anything because I didn't even know if the information I had was valuable. I realized that it was valuable when the public protector at the time, Tuli Marinsela, her office called me and they wanted to meet with me. And they wanted copies of the data that I had, and they wanted context of who the different people were. And it was only when I met them did I actually realize how significant the information that I had actually was towards unraveling what we now call state capture.
Did you experience some pressure from within yourself in thinking, should I do something? Should I be the one doing something? What did that?
Yeah. It was a huge mental and emotional conflict. It was turmoil, to be blunt. There were so many different things that happened. I mean, I explained to you the public protector, but the other thing that was happening at the time is that journalists would call me. And the last I knew, I never gave my phone number to any journalist, right? Oh. So the fact that these journalists were able to find my details and contact me and give me this context of what they were uncovering really made me realize that this was concerning, that this was a big problem. I had discussed it even before the public protector with my husband at the time, with my parents, with my pastors. I felt that I should have gone to the police. I should have done something. The advice that they were giving me was that I can't go to the police because nobody knew the extent of state capture at the time. There was a sense that even the police were captured. I was advised to find lawyers, which I did. And when I spoke to lawyers, they also validated that this was very significant. Spoke to civil society. I remember speaking to David Lewis at one point, and at the time he was heading up Corruption Watch. And he said to me that this is daylight robbery, it's pure fraud. So those concerns of Trillion's involvement and the information that I had was getting validated. The turmoil came in where nobody knew what this was. Nobody knew if my family would be put at risk. I had a cousin that said, but Bianca, this sounds like a movie. What if people try and hurt you? You know, you have all these thoughts going through your mind and you don't know what's the right thing to do for yourself and for your family. It was absolute torture. It was absolutely horrible. And after meeting the public protector, it became easier for me to say, I am going to make this public. Also, because at the time there was an NPO called Pluff that approached me and gave me the security that they would help me blow the whistle. Things started falling into place a little bit easier.
And didn't they also offer you asylum or arrange asylum for you when things started to go really bad?
Yeah, and I don't know how they landed on Belgium, but Belgium was the country of choice. And it was so funny because my daughter was very young at the time. I think at the time she was 4. My daughter hadn't had a passport yet because, you know, we hadn't started traveling. We hadn't started doing that type of stuff. We were just a new family. And I mean, they were like, we'll get your daughter a passport and you can be out of here in 2 weeks. And the idea of packing up my life, going to a place where English is not even spoken that frequently, going to a place that's cold, it's in Europe, it's totally different. My lifestyle would be upended. How do you comprehend that in 2 weeks?
Yeah,
as an option, right? It was just too much. And then as part of that, this whole dilemma put an enormous strain on the relationships that I valued.
That is what I want to talk about. Of course, I said to you, I want to talk about how long whistleblowing can affect one's life. And you reported in 2016, or it came out. And then in December 2017, Rebecca Davis and Jessica Poseidon reported that you, after having blown the whistle in 2016, can now stand tall. Those were your words, quoted. But then I met you in 2018 in Maputo, of all places. Yes, and you came to talk at a conference I arranged there. And I remember you being really very fragile at that point in time. And I remember having to hand lots of tissues to you, and you also had the whole audience in tears. And you were fragile. And I can see that you, no, let me not play psychologist here. So do you think, Bianca, that you are standing tall now in 2023? Are you sometimes standing tall?
Yeah.
How long is the impact?
So what happened in 2018 was I had actually started seeing a psychotherapist. I started seeing a psychiatrist who specializes in trauma. And I've never had mental interventions in my life before. No other part of my life have I ever seen a psychologist or gone for any kind of therapy. I've never done that. I didn't know. But I did struggle for employment, and Magda Versica at one point offered me a job. And I remember she was in the Joburg office the one day. She looked at me and she said, "You're looking great, but do you know you've got PTSD?" And I looked at her, I'm like, "What do you mean?" I'm not a war veteran. Because that is sort of my association. Like, you watch these movies and stuff and you think that it's war veterans that suffer from PTSD, right?
Yeah.
And she just encouraged me to start seeing, that is toward the end of 2017, she encouraged me to start seeing a therapist. And I started seeing my doctor in 2018. And my doctor instantly diagnosed me with CPTSD, complex post-traumatic stress disorder, because this whistleblowing had been ongoing for a few years, the trauma of it, and then also active PTSD. And I was put on medication to manage my anxiety. But the process of therapy is very difficult because you've got to sort of relive it to heal it properly. I wrote a blog once and I described it as you've got to basically go in with your saw. You've got to take a scalpel, you've got to cut the bad parts out so that the healing can actually be healthier. And that's what therapy was. And in trying to recover from PTSD, unfortunately, I've had to relive things. However, with therapy, it's in a safe environment, it's in a controlled environment. But it really has been, it's been difficult. I still have therapy now. My doctor says that we are close to maybe ending the intervention, but I still see her every week. It's 2023 now, right? How many years later?
Yeah.
And I'm still getting help. So it's been incredibly difficult.
But Bianca, you've been active behind the scenes in assisting whistleblowers as well. I specifically remember a call the two of us had in, I think, July 2021. Do you want to tell us about what came from that call when we got so frustrated with people talking and not doing anything?
Yeah, that's actually, I understand that to be trauma, my impulsivity. I know is a trauma marker, but and having very low tolerance to certain things. But everybody, I mean, at that time, the recommendations from the Zondo committee study, I'm not saying it correct, the the judicial inquiry into state capture, the recommendations that come out. There was a feeling, I think it was Shamila Batoy at the time, head of the NPA, that was saying that we need to do more for whistleblowers. There were more whistleblowers coming forward after the brave state capture whistleblowers had come forward. I think it had sort of like spiked up some other people to speak up, and yet nothing was happening. And I got so frustrated, and you, the person that I found, and coincidentally, we were both thinking of the same thing. And so we gave birth to this NPO called the Whistleblower House. So we started the Whistleblower House, and it was so fun the way we did it, because I remember you and I not really knowing how to do it. We've never started an NPO before. And it was so fun to get it going. But you know what was so scary? There was a February, I don't remember the year, I think it was 2020, Liesel, when we actually had a bit of a Zoom meeting, and we just started trying, to slowly introduce the Whistleblower House to the public. And what was so scary to me is how many appeals for help came out of that. And it blew my mind at how different whistleblowing was, because I just got so used to whistleblowing in the context of state capture. But there were people from the private entities, or the private, corporates, to public corporates. Everyone was just saying that, and they felt passionate about the injustice that they had seen, and how they want to they don't want to hurt themselves, but they want to stop the injustice, and they just want to expose light on what they know. And speaking to all these people about it, and the struggles and their fears of their family, unfortunately based on people's stories like mine, really became a hindrance, and the need for the Whistleblower House just got so much more emphasized, because if people have support and they don't suffer the way we did, the state capture whistleblowers, there wouldn't be a fear of blowing the whistle. There would be rather that I'm standing proud feeling of blowing the whistle, right? But unfortunately, in the absence of support, it is a very scary decision to make, So the intention for you and I was to have a more transparent society where people are actually celebrated for being honest, hold the right people and entities and processes accountable, and people appreciate that and move forward. That was the thinking behind it, right? And it's working.
So my initial question was how long whistleblowing can affect one's life. And to me, it seems forever.
It is sort of forever, but people mustn't think that it's a bad thing, because I laugh at my best friend, and I say to her, it was an unintended midlife crisis. Because what it does, especially the trauma process and the healing process, makes you really focus when you come out of it in a healthy way. It makes you really focus on what's important, and I'm grateful now that my perception of a career, it doesn't always have to be in corporate. Instead, what the benefit that's come out of it is that I'm running my own business now. I've learned to not rely on other people to make me feel safe, to have all my safety features. I got a dog. There are these little things that you end up taking control of that literally do redefine your life. And I do think that when I look at the personal benefits of how much it's changed me since then, that redefinition had to happen for me. It maybe didn't have to happen this way, but
maybe unnecessary.
Yeah. So I do think it stays with you, but I think you learn from it. And I have more faith in my feelings and my gut feelings and my values now than I ever had before. And I'm grateful for that.